And obviously, we wouldn't want to be owning anything that we thought was in a currency that was really going to hell. And that's the big thing we worry about with the United States currency.
Billionaire investor Warren Buffett just made the case to own Bitcoin, saying the natural course of government is to make the currency worth less over time.
The natural course of government is to make the currency worth less.
Yet, this is while his company, Berkshire Hathaway, sits on more cash, more US dollars, than they have held in over 20 years, over $350 billion worth of cash.
And obviously we wouldn't want to be owning anything that we thought was in a currency that was really going to hell.
As the company stock, Berkshire Hathaway, plunges below its 200-day moving average, signaling Warren Buffett has a fiduciary duty to the shareholders to put all this cash into some other asset. Again, he has never held this much cash ever, yet he makes the case that it's not smart to hold cash long term because it's only losing value. Let's also talk altcoins. Which altcoins have growth potential?
The on-chain transaction volume on Solana dominates all other chains.
As well as the very first Bittensor halving is happening now.
Don't forget, Tau Bittensor is built very similar to Bitcoin.
Let's listen to Warren Buffett make the case for Bitcoin or gold or any store of value assets. This is about 2.5 minutes long, but very worth it. Let me share this with you, then I'll react.
And obviously, we wouldn't want to be owning anything that we thought was in a currency that was really going to hell. And that's the big thing we worry about with the United States currency. I mean, the tendency of a government to want to debase its currency over time there's no system that beats that. You know, you can pick dictators, you can pick representatives, you can do anything, but the people, there will be a push toward weaker currencies, and of course that is, I mentioned very briefly in the annual report that the fiscal policy is what scares me in the United States because it's made the way it is, and all the motivations are to doing a lot of things that can cause trouble with money. But that's not limited to the United States. It's all over the world, and some places it gets out of control regularly. As you know, they devalue at rates that are breathtaking, and that's continued. I mean, and people can study economics, and you can have all kinds of arrangements, but in the end, if you've got people that control the currency, you can issue paper money, and you will, or you can engage in clipping currencies like they used to do centuries ago. Or there will always be people. It's the nature of their job. I'm not singling them out as particularly evil or anything like that. But the natural course of government is to make the currency worth less over time, and that's got important consequences. And it's very hard to build checks and balances into the system to keep that from happening.
So given the purchasing power of the US dollar has literally only been going down, given enough time, the last 100 years. And by the way, that's not slowing down. The United States dollar has lost over 20% of its purchasing power in just 5 years, meaning a $100 bill that you had in 2020 now buys $80 worth of goods and services, leaving Warren Buffett to signal that it is their fiduciary duty to not hold cash for too long. And with over $400 billion worth of cash, it is worth understanding that assets priced in Bitcoin, for example, US houses, are trending to zero in Bitcoin terms, meaning they're getting more affordable housing priced in Bitcoin. In 2015, it cost around 688 Bitcoin to buy one house. In 2020, it cost around 12 Bitcoin to buy a house. Today, it costs around 4.9 Bitcoin to buy a house. Do we think inflation is ending, or do we think inflation is getting worse? I think it's getting worse, and if that's the case, then the trend is your friend. Warren Buffett doesn't make many moves. He often makes just one or two big moves eventually. As a value investor, he often tries to make the safe move. So do I think he's going to put all of that billions of dollars into Bitcoin? He's a guy that self-admits he missed tech, right? He missed Apple. He missed Google back in the day. He didn't end up buying Apple stock until decades later. But really the smart thing is to own a basket of store value assets like Bitcoin, like gold, and also focus on assets with true product market fit. The CEO of one of the biggest stablecoins in existence, Jeremy Allaire of Circle behind USDC, says Solana is dominating all other chains in volume.
When you look at on-chain transaction volume of USDC, actually the on-chain transaction volume on Solana dominates all other chains. And the maturation of the infrastructure is just making this more and more compelling. We're seeing more and more major consumer-facing and merchant-facing platforms adopting USDC on Solana as a primary infrastructure. So, I mean, we're thrilled with what's happened. I mean, look at this. Like, this is pretty awesome.
We also have the very first Bittensor halving happening probably by the time you watch this video. Many of you have been asking me, Austin, how do I talk to my family about Bittensor's halving? Give me some words, give me your thoughts. Well, Bittensor's first halving is expected to boost Tau's price in the long run, just like the Bitcoin halving, and starve out the zombie subnets, just like the Bitcoin halving starves out the zombie miners. This is a really good breakdown, very basic, very simplistic of what Tau is.
Well, don't forget, Bittensor is built very similar to Bitcoin. 21 million fixed supply of 21 million tokens, a halving every 4 years. The only thing that's different is Bittensor, again, the Tau is the token. Bittensor abstracted away the incentive mechanism. So it's a very similar idea. Let's give incentives for the people who help us. So Bitcoin does that, gives incentives to the miners who validate transactions. But Bittensor gives incentives to people who come up with better and better AI models or whatever the problems are that the subnets are trying to solve. So it really is, it's like the Bitcoin of entrepreneurship.
Investing in Tau to me is like seed investing in hundreds of different AI startups, meaning many of the Tau subnets will not make it. The zombie subnets will get starved out. The subnets that survive, and if you're invested in Tau, it's like seed staking AI projects early. This is sort of has a AI robotic voice, but I really do think this is a great 90 seconds. I'm only going to play you 60 seconds, but 90 seconds of Bittensor basics explainer video.
Think of it like this. Google owns YouTube, Maps, and DeepMind. Completely different businesses under one roof. Each uses digital intelligence in its own way, but all of that value ultimately rolls up into a single centralized company, Google. Now imagine that same model, but open, decentralized, and owned by its contributors. That's Bittensor. Each subnet is its own mini economy with its own incentives, a marketplace where the best intelligence wins. Competition forces improvement, as someone will always push the benchmark further. Define a problem, define how to score it, and Bittensor will solve it. And instead of the value flowing into a private company, it flows back to all contributors.
I personally believe that just like the Bitcoin halving, the second this happens, we're not going to see any fundamental change. The true value is going to be 6 to 12 to maybe even 14 months later is where price for the Bitcoin halving usually goes up. I would expect if, the altcoin doesn't go to zero, I would expect price to go up. That's personally me. You can always subscribe to Altcoin Daily for a daily video keeping you informed about crypto.